Number 1.
Camera
Number
1
2.
up. Camera 2 up.
Number 3.
Camera 3 up.
We are good. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Caroline. How are you?
Good morning, Avi. Good morning, Avi. Hey, why aren't you shaved? Let's tell everybody why you're not shaved. What's going on with the Jews today?
Yeah, well, we are in the period called the 3 weeks, and we're now in we're at the end of it, the 9 days. And it's the period where we remember and connect with the sadness of the destruction of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem thousands of years ago. And I think it's the most powerful time period to be a Jew because it shows how our history is important to us today. It's not just in the history books.
But we live our history.
Exactly. We live our history. It has to do with who our identity is today as a people, as individuals. So I get to feel itchy and scratchy and...
Well, that's because, this is what you do when you're in mourning.
Right, exactly. It's the Jewish tradition of mourning, and therefore we're mourning what happened thousands of years ago. And it's unbelievable. Jewish history is unbelievable because God really said, this is going to be a time period where you're going to cry throughout history. And it really is. Pogroms took place during this time period. Horrible things took place through this time period throughout our history, not just going back to the destruction of both Jewish temples in Jerusalem. So that's why I look like this, and I can't wait to shave, and I'm waiting for... hopefully Mashiach will come before Tisha B'Av, right? That's the fast day on Sunday. But if not, then I'll be shaving on Monday.
And it's interesting because the Women in Green movement, every year they have... they read Megillat Eicha, the book of Eicha in... what is Eicha in English? I can't remember.
Oh, Lamentations.
Yeah, they read the book of Lamentations... it used to be as a form of protest against the United States that wanted to divide Jerusalem, so they have it in Independence Park across the street from the American consulate in the center of Jerusalem. But now it's just become a tradition, and then they read Lamentations, and then they go
walk around the walls, the old city walls.
So they asked me to speak.
I saw.
And they wanted me to speak at the Lions Gate, but I'm going to be with my children, and it's going to just be late, so I'm not sure we're going to survive. So anyway, I'm doing it at the beginning, and so the Palestinian Authority has been inciting against this march and saying that it's a provocation and that it's this because how dare we, right? That's the other thing is that here we are 2,000 years later, and we're mourning the destruction of the Second Temple and the First Temple, of course, and living our identity is so much formed by not only the temple but also its destruction and what happened to us since then. And here are enemies saying that the very ritual of doing so, and then of demonstrating our longing for what we lost for the temple and our desire to see it rebuilt, that is a provocation. They deny that there was ever a temple there, so that all of the rituals that Jews have been doing for 2,000 years or more, really, since the destruction of the first temple, that they're all lies, that there was never a temple, and that it's a provocation for Jews to even practice Judaism.
Right.
Because Judaism is a provocation. Because Judaism, and the fact that it exists, and that we continue to practice it, and that we live here, and that we're in Jerusalem, and that we did reunify the city and all the rest of it, that provokes our enemies. They can't accept our existence. And there's really nothing more symbolic, or not even just symbolic, an outright declaration that we reject the existence of the Jews. Not of Efrat, not of the settlements that were built after 1967 in Judea and Samaria and unified Jerusalem. It's not that we reject. We reject the Jews.
Right.
We reject the existence of the Jews. We reject the presence of the Jews anywhere near us. Then them saying that mourning the destruction of the temple and walking around the walls of the old city, that's a provocation. And, that they're inciting against it. They have these preachers in mosques in Ramallah who are calling on people to attack and stuff like that. This is pure anti-Semitism. This is pure nullification of the right of the Jews to breathe in and out. That's what it is.
Right. And one thing that saddens me about my fellow Jews who miss this, what we're mourning is we're mourning the loss of our sovereignty as a nation
Right.
in our homeland
Right.
thousands of years ago. And yet we have plenty of Jews today who don't get that. And they're fighting against us reestablishing our sovereignty and siding with our enemies who want to destroy us. Forget about not allowing us to be sovereign.
Well, I mean, they're saying that we were talking before we started filming about these anti-Semites who are infiltrating these birthright trips to Israel and then causing all these provocations with all of their friends in the media to try to demonize and delegitimize the existence of Israel.
Right.
So one of these provocateurs who was here on birthright, that she left the tour early. And what was it that she said? You were saying?
Oh, she was saying how she was about to have her bat mitzvah at the Western Wall. And she just learned, right? She was just connecting with her Jewish identity. And the rabbi taught her being a bat mitzvah is about learning to take responsibility for yourself. She goes, I'm going to be taking responsibility by calling out the occupation and leaving birthright. That's how she feels like she's a strong Jew.
Right. So she has no idea what it means to be Jewish. She doesn't know what Jewish identity is. She also doesn't know what the implications of her taking responsibility for herself are, which is that she's endangering Israel and empowering its worst enemies and pushing forward with this narrative that denies Jews all human rights, not just national rights. Because again, if worshiping and performing the rituals of Tisha B'Av, as we've been doing for 2,000 years, is a provocation, then that the implication here is that Jews have no right to exist.
Right.
And she's siding with those people, these outright, Nazi-type anti-Semites who want to destroy Jewish existence. She's siding with them against the Jews, and she's pretending she believes, because she's an ignoramus, that what she's doing is somehow or another advancing the cause of civil rights or human rights or whatever. And she's such a despicable human being. She's so ignorant, and she's acting, and she's moralizing. She's trying to stand above us and say that she knows better than we do, and she knows zero.
Nothing.
I mean, it's not even zero. It's not empty set. If you knew nothing, that'd be fine. But what she knows is lies, and she's propagating lies, and she's absolutely convinced of her own internal morality, when what she's doing is siding with people who want to kill every Jew in the world. And by the way, to advance the cause of the annihilation of freedom in the entire world in the name of Islamic domination. So, she's pathetic and she's dangerous. And I think that she should have just been escorted to Ben Gurion Airport and put on the first plane out. She could go to Jordan if she wants to. She's going to have to go to America.
All right. Well, that's one situation we're dealing with. But for those of us Jews who are connecting with our Jewish history, this is a very, very important time period. And it shows you the importance of history to our reality and to the future of the Jewish people. It's not just for the history books. All right. Now
we exist because of this ritual. We
Right.
exist because we know who we are, and we don't lose sight of our identity. And that's why Judaism and the Jewish people have survived despite everything that we've been through in our 4,000-year history.
Exactly. All right, now we're going to a modern history in the making. The world just witnessed this summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. What did we just witness? Because honestly, I'm looking at headlines today, and I'm seeing most of the headlines I'm seeing are calling Trump treasonous for even meeting Putin and for calling out the American intelligence agencies for siding with Putin against American intelligence agencies. What did we just witness? Did something happen there that was good? Should we be worried about what just came out of that summit? Please, Caroline, help us.
I think that we have to worry about what was going into the summit, and I think that President Trump was absolutely right when he was calling out the Mueller investigation and these other intelligence bodies in the United States who are pushing the narrative that Russia is at war with the United States and that Russia stole the elections on behalf of Trump. And let me just, let me explain what I mean. Look, there's one basic fact that I have never been able to get my head around. Okay, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, claimed that it was hacked, right? That their computers were hacked,
right,
by an outside power. They blamed Russia. And then they proceeded to not permit the FBI to take possession of or to check their server. So that the contention that they were hacked was never actually verified by anybody in the government. The DNC is a private organization. It's just a party organization. It is not a government organization. They complained that they were hacked. They claimed that they were hacked by Russia. They brought their server to be checked by a private contractor that they paid, that in and of itself had some interesting connections to all kinds of people, right? And then but they never permitted the FBI to check the server. But based upon this unverified contention by the Democrats, again, the Obama intelligence agencies, which we know from what has already come out, were in the tank for Hillary, were getting FISA warrants, these Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Acts warrants for no cause against people in the Trump campaign in order to try to criminalize Trump. They were acting in collusion with the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier that was paid for by the Hillary campaign and by the DNC to try to bring up dirt on Trump and make up these ideas that he was working with the Russians when there's been absolutely no evidence of any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia of any kind, including this guy, Carter Page, who really, his only crime was that he's just not that bright. And so you have this bizarre situation where this narrative of collusion of Trump has been created by the media, by the Democratic Party, and with the active assistance of corrupt operatives inside of the FBI, like Peter Strzok, that bizarro, disgraced agent who just put on one of the most outrageous performances I've ever seen in his testimony before Congress. And people like, Brennan in the CIA, who just are pushing forward with this narrative. And in the meantime, what do you have on the other side, right? You have Hillary Clinton's server was totally unprotected. She had all of these top secret, thousands and thousands and thousands of top secret documents that she was sending back and forth with Huma Abedin and whatever to other unprotected computers, and it just came out that with absolute certainty that a hostile foreign power received, at least 30,000 of these classified emails while they were being sent in real time, meaning that they controlled the server from the get-go. Hillary Clinton, through the Clinton Foundation, after the Clinton Foundation got all of this money from these people who work for the Kremlin, they gave they allowed them to buy something like a quarter of the uranium deposits in the United States. I mean, that's a real collusion, right? You have Obama getting caught on a hot mic telling Putin before the 2012 elections, or his
deputy.
Yeah, that he would have much more flexibility after the elections. You had this horrible appeasement policy towards the Russians for 8 years with the Obama administration, where they literally laid down and did nothing in the face of massive Russian aggression in Crimea and Ukraine and so on and so forth. And then the Russian appearance suddenly in Syria on behalf of Iran and Hezbollah and the Assad regime was facilitated by the Obama administration. And so then Trump comes into office with this cloud of controversy and as if he's the treasonous guy. And it's all based upon this unverified claim by the DNC that they were hacked by Russia. And nobody has ever checked their server. So I understand the president's frustration, because in the meantime, you had a situation where the only way, really, or the only way without war that the United States can attend to the situation in Syria, which is a danger not only to Israel and to Jordan, of course, but also to direct American national security interests in the Middle East. The only way that he can do it is by dealing with Russia. Now, why didn't the Obama administration want him to deal with Putin? Why is it so important to make it radioactive for an American president to reach any kind of an agreement with Putin? Because the whole basis for Putin's sitting in, deploying troops to Syria empowered Iran. Ben Rhodes himself, Obama's spin master, the deputy national security advisor in the Obama administration, gave this interview where he said that basically the American policy of non-intervention, meaning passive intervention on behalf of Iranian takeover of Syria through Hezbollah and the Assad regime, was in order to induce the Iranians to agree to the nuclear deal, which of course gave them nuclear weapons.
Right.
So they had this whole policy of non-intervention in the face of, genocide of Sunnis by the Assad regime with chemical warfare and chemical agents and barrel bombs and all the rest, and they did nothing because they wanted to appease Iran, allowing the Russians free reign in Syria on behalf of Hezbollah and Iran and Assad, and giving them, those incredibly important naval bases and air bases in Latakia and Khneimim. These were all things that the Obama administration wanted to do. So if Trump is able to reach a deal with Putin, and this is what they wanted to do at the outset, this is something that Mike Flynn was interested in trying to do, the first national security advisor, then they could be potentially in a position to remove Iranian forces and Hezbollah from Syria without war. Or, more to the point, if the United States can attenuate the alliance that Putin has forged over time, and beforehand the Russians had in general with the Khomeini regime, with the Islamist regime of the Ayatollahs in Iran, then that's a huge step towards tearing apart the strategic foundations of that regime. So this is a clear American interest, but by criminalizing all cooperation with Russia, any attempt to reach some sort of a power-sharing deal or what have you between the United States and the Russians in the Middle East or anywhere else, any concession that the United States makes to Russia on Ukraine or whatever, all of that has now been criminalized as a result of the unverified claim that Russian meddling had anything to do with the election results, that Trump is somehow or another criminally implicated in some conspiracy against the American people, when actually the conspiracy to empower Russia to induce Iran to the table was the actual policy of the Obama administration for 8 years, and Trump was presented with this horrible situation, and in order to protect that failed policy, it was necessary to make it very difficult for an American president to do anything with Russia. And so that, I think, is the basis for all of this. Because again, if there had been a shred of evidence that there was collusion between the Kremlin and Trump or anybody in his campaign, you could say, okay, if the DNC had given their server to the FBI to physically take hold of and check to figure out what happened there, then that would have been a different situation. But none of that has happened. The exact opposite has happened. There is no collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians. There never was between the Trump campaign and Russia. If anything, the people who were working with the Russians were operatives of the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign when they were putting together the Steele dossier, right, with British intelligence collusion, Australian intelligence collusion, and with the cooperation of Russian intelligence assets who worked at the Kremlin. That was what the Steele dossier was. So you're looking at this whole situation. Then they're saying, how dare he speak with Putin? But what were they talking about? And this gets us to Israel, right? They were talking about Syria because the situation there is on the brink of war. And it is terrifying. Because unlike Hamas and their balloons and all the rest of it, which we're having a hard time dealing with, Hezbollah is terrifying. It is a real army. They are battle-hardened, serious combat soldiers who have been fighting continuously for a decade, at least, in Iraq and in Syria. They know exactly what they're doing. Their field commanders are fantastic. They are armed to the teeth with advanced weapons, and they have the ability to self-produce. And if they come to the border with the Golan Heights, we're going to war. And they are deploying to the border. And the Russians are enabling it, but while pretending that they're not enabling it. So there could have been no more urgent thing than for the American president to meet with the Russian president and to say to him, look, what are you doing in Syria? We're not interested in having a war between Israel and Iran Hezbollah. We don't see the interest. Where's the Russian interest here? Let's see if we can cut a deal to prevent this devastating war from occurring. Let's see if we can defuse this bomb that was deliberately set by the Obama administration with their non-interference and by you because, you were acting on your own interests. You wanted to come to Syria because why not? It's a target of opportunity. You don't pay anything for anything there, and you get all of this power. You're not stupid. I mean, anybody would have taken the deal, presuming that they don't have a problem with siding with Hezbollah in Iran. There are a lot of countries that would have taken the deal that Putin made. So is he evil? Yeah, he's evil. But do you have to make a deal with him? Yes. Is he going away tomorrow? No, he will go away when he is good and ready, and not a minute before that. So until he does, he's in charge. He's sitting on incredibly important real estate in Syria. He's got significant leverage and influence over some of the most dangerous forces that are arrayed against Israel that we've ever seen. And so the idea that it's treasonous for the American president to go and meet with him is insane. That in and of itself is treasonous, because what you're saying is that the American president, because of a bunch of lies or allegations, let's be nice, that have never ever been proven, despite the fact that Mueller and before him Comey, they were spritzing millions and millions of dollars on this concocted investigation, and despite all of that, they have found zero evidence of collusion, and all it is a media circus, including, by the way, the most recent indictments, right? Because who were they indicting? I don't know even who they were indicting, but they were indicting a bunch of Russians, right?
You're referring to the 12 Russians?
Yeah, but they're not in America. They're not in Britain. Nobody's going to extradite them to the United States. So it was all a media stunt, because none of the so-called evidence that's been compiled against them that, Rod Rosenstein announces in this media circus the evening before Trump is supposed to meet with Putin. Oh, and that's all just by chance, we're supposed to believe, right? It's not about undermining American foreign policy. That in and of itself is an impeachable offense by Rod Rosenstein, because he's interfering with the conduct of foreign policy by the American president. But it's a joke, because none of them will ever stand trial. And everybody knows that they'll never stand trial, because they're not going to be extradited. Nobody's going to put it in an extradition order anywhere, and if they do, they'll give it to Putin, and Putin will laugh and throw it in the toilet. So it's all a lie. And when you look at that, and then you get these front page headlines saying that Trump is a traitor. Now the only thing that I can say, which is what a lot of people in Washington are saying, who know this situation a lot more than I do, and I mean I've been following it very closely because it's important to know what the stability of the administration is. But it's not like I write about this stuff. But, they're saying, look, Congress is trying to investigate this. But really the only person who is vested with the authority to force the FBI to say, what they actually were doing before the election with this, why it is that the server was never checked, who made that decision not to check the server, and so on and so forth, and all the other investigatory important things that nobody knows about, is Trump. Trump is in charge of the FBI. Trump is in charge of the Justice Department. Trump has to simply order the declassification of all of these things, order all of these rogue agents inside of the FBI and Justice and, wherever else, State Department, to stand before congressional investigators or grand juries, for that matter, and fire anybody who's not complying with his orders. He's vested with that authority as president, and it's about time that he uses it. So, that's the only thing that I can say. And I understand why he's not. Because everything that he does, look, he meets with the president of Putin in an urgent summit. And he's criminalized. Now, what is he supposed to do? He needs to make a deal with Putin. And again, Putin's holding most of the cards here. He's got the high cards. The Americans they have some cards with the special forces east of the Euphrates River blocking the transit of troops from Iraq. But the guy with most of the real estate and most of the power there is Putin, and the United States wants to make a deal with him. So you go there and you insult him? Is that the best way to negotiate? No, maybe it would have been. But if it had been, I'm sure that's what Trump would have done. He went there because he had to make a deal with Putin, not because he likes Putin or he doesn't like Putin. He went there because he is the president of the United States and he has a job to do. And for that, he's being burned in effigy as a traitor by these people who've been trying to burn him in effigy as a traitor since he got the Republican nomination.
I want to bring this back to a simple question, which I'll preface with some information that's putting out there to help us better understand. The question is this: is Russia an enemy of the United States or not? And let me just preface, what's the information about that question? You go back to the Mitt Romney, Barack Obama pre-election debate, right, foreign policy debate, where Mitt Romney said, yes, the biggest enemy of the United States is Russia, and Barack Obama at the time, President Barack Obama at the time, then makes fun of Romney, saying, Romney, let's go back to 1980s foreign policy.
Well, no, the 1980s want their foreign policy.
Right.
They want their foreign policy.
Exactly, right? So they made fun, and everyone made fun of Romney. How can you say such a thing? Then we come to the Obama administration's years of presidency, where you had Obama saying to Lavrov, or whatever the name was, Russian guy, saying, oh, wait until the next election, then I'll have more flexibility, right? Showing that Barack Obama wanted to work with Russia. Then you have the stupid restart button of Hillary Clinton saying we're restarting good relations with Russia. Okay, then you have basically today everyone saying you're not supposed to meet Russia at all. Where for those 8 years under President Obama, they wanted to get close to Russia. What is going on? Is Russia an enemy of the United States or not? And in that context, everyone's throwing out that Trump this week called the EU a foe, a trade foe, right? Putting things into context. So they're calling him out. Wait, you called the EU a foe, but you're not calling Russia a foe? Where do we stand? Is Russia an enemy of the United States or not?
Yeah. I mean, look, it of course it's not an ally of the United States, right? I mean, it has interests that run counter to the United States. It has alliances that have been built around opposition to the United States for the better part of 100 years. Its foreign policy aspirations are to curtail and cut back on American power abroad and American economic viability at home. If that's not an enemy, I don't know what is. On the other hand, are they an ideological foe, right? Does Putin believe that, he was put on this earth to destroy the United States, or is his position more of a mercantilist thing, where he'll go with whoever makes him the best deal, and he doesn't look at things in sort of a long-term strategic formula the way that the communists did, who wanted to have global domination in the name of communists, or the way that the Islamists do, who want to have global domination in the name of Allah. That's always the question that people go back and forth with on Putin, because if he's not ideologically driven to this idea of Mama Russia being in charge of everything or whatever and destroying the United States, and there are people in his circle who are devoted to that kind of concept where, and it got to do with his sort of leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church and all the rest of it. If he's not there, but he's actually in a position where he wants to make a deal and he's really more of a realpolitik, balance of power type of guy, then you can make a deal with him. And that's something that, you have to be able to explore, because it's a better world where the United States doesn't have to be in open war against Russia, right? Where the United States doesn't have to be in conflict because, they're not that powerful, but thanks to the Obama administration, they're much more powerful than they were in 2009. So you have to bear that in mind, and you have to think that through. Now, and again, it's not just Trump that said it. It is simply a fact that at the height of the Cold War, American presidents met with Soviet leaders. At the height of the Cold War, right? Some of those summits were terrible, like the Kennedy-Khrushchev meeting in 1961 before the Bay of Pigs. Some of those meetings were more successful, like when Reagan blew up the Reykjavik summit over the SALT II or the START talks in when was it, 1987, which was something that really caused the breakdown of the Soviet Union. These are, it all depends. Like you can do good things in summits, you can do bad things in summits, you can do nothing in summits. But at all times, Americans and Soviets had summits, and they met. And now, because of this concocted thing with the Democrats, there's somebody writing in, he's losing his base is opposed to this and all the rest of it. I don't know, because the Republicans that I saw that are speaking badly about Trump, right? It's Senator Flake and Senator McCain from Arizona, who are the leaders of the Never Trumps. I mean, they're not his base. They're part of the Republican establishment, like along with Romney and all of them, who's saying you mustn't cut a deal with Russia. Well, if you can't cut a deal with Russia and they're standing right in front of you, you better have some serious maneuver room on the side so that you can get around Russia. Unless you want to actually go to war with Russia. If you want to go to war with Russia, then let's talk about that. Okay, what would a war with Russia look like? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? You want to deploy troops to Ukraine to fight for Ukrainian independence? Okay, let's talk about that. All right, what does the American gain from that? What is the price the United States would pay for that? Let's have a serious discussion about that. If that's what you're pushing for, that's fine. That's a legitimate policy debate. But we're not having that policy debate because nobody is talking about putting troops in Ukraine. Nobody is talking about going to war against Russia. So again, if you want to talk about that, that's totally cool. Again, maybe that's what the United States has to do. Maybe the United States has to have regime change in Russia. Maybe the United States should be actively supporting the dissidents in Russia and pushing Khodorkovsky or whatever to go run against Putin again, or I don't know what, come in on a white horse and blow up the Kremlin. I don't know. Maybe that's a scenario that people want to follow. If so, fantastic, but let's have a debate on this. Let's talk about it on its merits. Let's discuss this. Because right now there's not an opposing policy of saying how you want to deal with this Russian menace. What you're saying is you're not allowed to have any conversations with them, and in the meantime, nobody's saying what you're supposed to be doing. So here you have an American president who came in with his opposition, including the flakes of the Senate and the McCains of the Senate. And by the way, let's not forget the role that McCain played in the whole Steele dossier against Trump during the elections, right? Let's not forget this because these are salient points. If you're not going to look at this, and you're not going to look at that, and you're not going to look at the other thing, then what you're talking about is not having a debate at all. You're not talking about trying to put together some sort of coherent or rational or constructive policy with regards to Russia. You're talking about criminalizing the United States or criminalizing the president and making it impossible for him to advance a foreign policy that in any way departs from the failed and dangerous foreign policy of his predecessor. And I believe that that's really what you're dealing with here. You're not dealing with a debate about Russia at all. You're dealing with a way to try to restrain Trump. And so he said, you know what, screw all of you, right? I have a job to do. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go meet with Putin against all of your wishes because I have a job to do. I have a duty to perform to the American people and the United States of America. I have to secure American interests, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it. And he should be applauded. Not only, I mean, I don't know I'm afraid of what they said about Syria. Any talk about a grand bargain in Syria, as far as I'm concerned, is bad. Because, again, American strategic capabilities in terms of thinking are limited. They don't seem to be able to reason themselves out of a foxhole from a strategic perspective. I mean, they made hash of so many of the things that they tried to do since the end of the Cold War that I don't want any grand bargains to be negotiated on behalf of the United States or on behalf of anybody else, certainly not on behalf of Israel. But if you can reach it, so I'm afraid of it. But saying that, I think we're better off having an American president leading American foreign policy, particularly if they're not leading it into the dirt like Obama did. If you're trying to get America out of the hole that Obama dug, then already you're moving America in a better direction because you're departing from a failed policy. Where you're going to go with that, I'm not sure. But, if you're in a hole, then get out of it. Quit digging. And what they're saying is, no, you have to keep digging. And if you don't keep digging, you're a traitor. But he's not. He's the president. And he's not being a traitor. He's being the president and is trying to do as good a job as he can with the horrible cards that he was delivered. So all of his casting out against the incredibly politicized, corrupt intelligence officers who are calling him like Brennan. I mean, is there a more corrupt CIA agent and a leader in American history? I don't think so. And all of these other Obama operatives who are acting in collusion with Mueller, who is a disgrace. I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying that. And then finally, one last thing from Israel about the Mueller investigation, because I think it's important, right? So when the Russian investigation went nowhere, because they have gotten nothing, zero, even these 12 people who have just been indicted, they're not saying that they have any ties to the Trump administration. I don't know what they're saying, but they're not saying that they had, maybe they were doing something bad against America, maybe. possible. I mean, America does terrible things to Israel's elections. You know, Obama spent lots of money trying to bring Bibi down. Clinton did the same thing in 1999. You know, the first Bush administration colluded with Rabin to bring down Shamir in 1992. I mean, the Americans have a long history of interfering and subverting the results of the Israeli elections.
And that's just Israel. There are other countries in the
world.
world.
Right, but I'm just talking about from our experience.
Right.
We know it, you know. So there's the fact that the Russians were doing it to America or that they're so indignant about the Russians doing it to them. It's sort of like, well, what do you want? Anyway, so the Russian allegation go nowhere. Where do Mueller and his investigators turn? To us. Now they're saying it was a Zionist plot against Hillary Clinton, right? They're going after Israeli private intelligence data analysis. What is it called? Black Cube, or were they involved? I don't know. They're going after these Israeli election people or computer people and saying it was all an Israeli plot, or the fact that Jared Kushner was trying to intervene with the Russians and others to prevent the Obama administration from taking its final revenge against Israel at the UN Security Council 5 minutes before they left office. And that was all engineered by the White House, just so you know. I mean, Israel had managed to get the Egyptians to table their own resolution and leave it for the Trump administration to deal with. And then the Obama administration went behind their back and got the New Zealanders or whomever to go push forward with the new resolution because all they really wanted, all Obama wanted was to screw Israel at the UN Security Council before he left office. So they're saying that because the incoming Trump administration, which opposed that resolution completely and didn't want it to pass, was trying to prevent Obama from pushing forward with this act of divine retribution, so-called, against Israel, because they hated us so much that they couldn't leave office without screwing the Jews one last time, that they were colluding with Israel and that Israel had somehow acted in an untoward manner regarding the U.S., which is a total lie. But, that's the thing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if other Israelis end up under investigation or targeted by the Mueller probe because... Wow. Where are you going to go at the end of the day? You can't get to the Russians, so you go to the second best bogeyman, which is the Jews, and you're going to start conspiracy theories. They've already started against Israel because we like Trump, and we don't make any bones about the fact that we think that he's so much better to Israel than Obama was. So obviously we have we have to be criminalized as well, because how dare we support somebody who is illegitimate? Again, this is not about Russia. It's not about Trump committing any form of treason. It's about him doing his job and then not wanting him to do his job. Right.
Wow, what an analysis! This is such a complex issue, and your information is really critical to help us try to figure this all out. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm not sure. Should we even dilute that with anything else? Maybe we should leave the rest of it till next time. What do you think?
Well, I want you touched upon Iran. I want to touch upon Iran and Gaza.
Okay.
Because I think that brings it all together. That brings it all together.
Now that I praised the Trump administration, my piece on Gaza is going to be going up on Breitbart later today, where I'm criticizing them. So just so everybody can see that I'm not a tool of the Trump administration and nobody paid me any money to say what I just said. Let's talk about Gaza.
All right, let's talk about Gaza. And again, I'm going to come across right now as the frustrated Israeli. Right? Now, as someone, I understand the big game, right? What I think I understand. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the army say, no, this is just a nuisance. The Gaza-Hamas issue is just a nuisance. Yeah, they're burning down half our country. Yeah, they're throwing kite bombs, whatever. But we're waiting for a real war up north. We want to save ourselves for the real war up north, and we're just going to use Band-Aids right now. We're not going to end this issue down in Gaza. It's still extremely frustrating that here we have this Gaza situation and kite bombs. There are kite bombs and condom balloons. It's like crazy that Israel is not doing what's necessary to stop this kindergarten terror against us. Put this into perspective. The North, the South, should we be upset and frustrated that Bibi isn't doing what's necessary to stop this down south? Should we have this understanding of the Iran issue and the Syrian border issue? Please help me.
So Okay. So the thing with Gaza that's really a problem here is that our whole way of looking at it is wrong. Because if what we've been looking, and the Americans, the Trump administration in particular, has been looking at Gaza as, a humanitarian issue. That the problem is that they don't have any clean water there. The problem is that they don't have any electricity there, and that they're frustrated. And what we really need to do is give them stuff. And if we give them stuff, then they'll go away, and we won't have this problem. So we don't want to go to war against Hamas or do anything to really degrade them, because the key here is to just appease them and give them a standard of living, and that's why they're attacking. And as a result, we're not going on offense. Instead, these 5-cent kites and these penny balloons are being used, and we're spending millions of dollars to try to adapt our drone technology to go after balloons and kites. And now they're using birds, these poor little birds. They're attaching incendiary devices to them so that they'll burn to death in Israel. They're monsters. And they're making fun of us, like with the condoms, right? They're making fun of us by burning swastikas on their kites to taunt us. And we're letting them get away with it, because we think that the problem is the humanitarian situation in Gaza and that we have to improve it. No, that's not true. It's not true. And it's not that expensive to do what we need to do in Gaza. What do I mean? We don't want to degrade, we don't want to harm anybody. We want to make everybody happy. And so what we're doing is we're spending billions of dollars building Iron Dome, $100 million per battery, $50,000 per missile, when the most expensive mortar that they field costs up to $500, right? Up to $500 per mortar, $50,000 for every missile, and we generally throw up 2 of them. So that's $100,000 per mortar intercept. And mortars, you could buy a mortar for $150. So they're making a joke. They pay $50 they pay $500 for a mortar. We pay $100,000 to bring down a mortar, and $100 million to develop the means to spend $100,000 to bring down a mortar. They spend 5 cents on a kite. They cause $2 million in damage to crops, and they make all of southern Israel look like killing fields, because they've destroyed all of the natural life, they've destroyed all of the crops, they've destroyed all of the farms, they've destroyed all of the farm machinery, and they did it for the bar. They probably have spent $25 on this, So how do you deal with this? And in the meantime, we have our geniuses in the Army and the Americans who are saying, well, what they really need is humanitarian aid. And it's a big deal when we stop supplying them with free electricity and fuel. Right? This is like a big, thing. Right. They burned down Kerem Shalom cargo terminal twice. And when we close it, it's a war crime.
Right. That's the area where Israel supplies the humanitarian aid, and they burnt it down.
That's where we give them stuff.
And they burnt up the gas lines.
They burn everything. And we're responsible. So we keep saying that if they suffer too much, then we're going to get in trouble. So let's not make them suffer. So what I say is that's totally ridiculous. The Americans had this huge summit at the White House. 20 countries came in March to pledge $1 billion in aid to Gaza. So we have to just stop with this. Just stop. Let them fail. Let them fail. We shouldn't be not killing. I saw this brilliant analysis of some genius in the Army saying, because they don't care about human life, because they think everybody who gets killed goes to heaven and gets his virgins, and so they don't mind losing people. See, that's a lie, right? Because if you have field commanders who have trained and Israel kills them, then they don't have them anymore. Then they have worse field commanders who aren't trained, who have to come in and replace them. So their ability to harm us has just been degraded. You kill the heads of Hamas, they have to find new ones. The new ones won't be as competent as the ones that you just killed, and so on and so forth. You don't want them to have good leaders. You don't want them to have people who are competent in fighting you. You want them to have people who are incompetent and inexperienced, because then they will do a worse job. You don't want them to have the means to attack you, which means you don't want to give them stuff that they can use to build missiles and to develop attack tunnels. Now they're doing it into the sea because they want to send frogmen to Ashkelon to kill people, right? Or to blow up the electricity generator there. You know, they have all of this. They have all of these ideas, and they don't cost them any money. They'll cost us billions of dollars in damage, and they'll destroy our deterrence. Because if a bunch of, terrorists with kites, homemade kites, can burn down southern Israel, then where's our deterrence? Who's going to be afraid to attack us? Nobody. It causes us significant strategic damage. And we're saying, well, we don't feel like going after them. So you don't have to go after them with everything. You don't have to send down half of the army. You have to simply send in the Air Force to take out real targets, to truly degrade them and not resupply them. No resupply. No resupply of anything. Not food, not electricity, not water, nothing. Don't build them anything. Don't let them have new schools where they'll indoctrinate more children to hate us. It is not to anybody's advantage that you're continuously doing it. Because why do they go to war? They go to war because they're jihadists and they want to destroy Israel. That's true. But the other reason is because this is their governing plan. This is how they govern. They drive Gaza into the dust, and when people are on the brink of starvation, they open up another round of hostilities against Israel, and then the Americans come in and have another donor conference to send them $100 million in aid so that they can feed everybody, get them off the brink of starvation, make them all happy, and then attack us again. And then it's the last thing, right? This whole hearts and mind thing. Let's drive a wedge between the people of Gaza and Hamas. The people of Gaza are Hamas. That's the thing that people don't understand. Oh, they're getting frustrated. No, they're not. They are not getting frustrated with Hamas. There is no statistical evidence that can possibly lead to this conclusion. They are supportive of Hamas. 2/3 of the Palestinians, both in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza, want Hamas to remain in power. And on the other hand, 2/3 of the Palestinians want PLO chief Mahmoud Abbas to resign from his position as head of the Palestinian Authority. They are not anti-Hamas. They are pro-Hamas. They want Hamas to lead them. All of these data show that at the most, polling organizations that are run by the PLO are saying that Fatah, the PLO's political guys, that they are leading Hamas in polls, electoral polls, by like 3 to 5%. Meaning that if this is what the PLO's own polls are saying, Hamas is leading the PLO, which is why there haven't been any elections since 2006.
Right.
The Hamas is the most popular and powerful political force in Palestinian society, in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. And so the idea that you can drive a wedge between them and their people by actually implementing Hamas's governing strategy is insane. And yet that is a centerpiece of the Trump administration's policy towards Gaza. Now, how does all this fit in with Syria? So they've been presenting Israel all this time with a binary choice. That we can either send the entire army. This is, our brilliant genius of a general staff. This is they. This
I
is
was going to get
their
there, right?
They're geniuses, such geniuses. My gosh, I don't know how we survive with these geniuses who are in charge of our general staff. So they say we have a binary choice. The Americans say you have a binary choice. The Europeans say you have a binary choice. We don't have a binary choice, but the binary choice that they tell us is this: you can either send the entire army, all of it, including the reserves, into Gaza, reconquer the entire Gaza Strip, go house to house, kill all of the Hamasniks, whatever, and save all the people who support Hamas from Hamas, right? And then what? Because then who's going to be in charge of Hamas? What, you want Givati to run Khan Yunis again? Oh, is this what you want? You're willing to pay this price? Of course nobody is, so that's not a real option. And the other option that they give us is we can continue to pay them off. Let them get stronger. Let them next time it'll be tissues, whatever. They're going to throw plastic bags at it and throw water balloons filled with poop into Israel. Who knows what they're going to do? Whatever they do. Cost them, 5 cents, 1 cent, blow up Israel, and they laugh at us. We're going to let them continue to do that, and we're going to supply them with the means to do it at the cost of billions of dollars. Because we don't want to get into war, because we want Golani to be able to fight Hezbollah. So that's stupid. It's stupid. What you do is you send in the Air Force, and if you need to send in some special forces, send in special forces. You kill a bunch of the Hamas leaders. You degrade all of their weapons stuff. Don't let them have it. What are you waiting for? You see an attack tunnel with your censoring devices that we spent $1 bazillion developing, then destroy it. Don't ask for an excuse. You don't need a provocation in order to take care of business. Otherwise, you'll end up in Gaza with what we have in Lebanon, which is an impregnable fortress of death and destruction staring us in the face. So no, you don't want that. So destroy it on the ground and don't let them have resupply. And Iran, which is their primary sponsor of all of their, aid, they're going to get broke next month when the American sanctions kick in. So you basically solve the problem with minimal forces, with minimal operation. And you want to take away their ability to use these kites and everything against you. Well, again, this is simple enough, and we had this until 2011 when we idiotically agreed to ceasefire terms that we divested ourselves from the 1 kilometer security zone that we established, the IDF did, on the Gaza side of the border. So you push them a kilometer away from the fields and Nachal Oz and all the rest of it, and they can't. And how far can a kite fly? And in the meantime, you have that kilometer-long barrier or buffer zone where you can destroy the kites and the balloons, and then they don't come in. This is a minimally invasive technique to prevent them from attacking and burning down Israel. You don't need a lot of forces to do it. You don't need a lot of resources to do it. You shouldn't have to have, the chief of staff deploying on Shabbat like a real, hero of Israel to oversee the operation on the border with Gaza. I mean, what a supremely stupid waste of time. Because, you don't trust a battalion commander to do this. It's his job. Whatever. Stop with deploying, the entire army to end provocations. Because you're not ending them. You're strengthening them when they see this, all the brass coming down. And then and then build a real strategy for dealing with Syria. Because there too, what are we doing? We're standing by and whining. Oh, there are Iranians on the border. We'll kill them. What is this? Say to Putin, listen, Bubba, you want us to test the S-400? You want us to show whether it works or not? You want us to figure it out for you? Like we did all your SAM missiles in 1982 in Lebanon? We don't have any problem. We have a whole strategy for defeating the S-400. We're perfectly willing to do it in broad daylight and televise it all live. What will happen to Russia's defense industry if the S-400 fails in Syria against the Israeli Air Force? You want to check? Let's check. Oh, you don't want to check? Then get the Iranians off our border. Now, that's what you do. You want to stop this? Stop it. Because this is a real threat. And, we're playing with ourselves. We're living in fantasy land. And the Trump administration is living in fantasy land. And they pretend that Gaza is anything other than a terrorist state supported by a terror population. It's not.
You touched upon the Israeli IDF general staff, and I just wanted to end with this point. Two really infuriating things. Again, I'm a soldier. I'm a reservist. I'm a big fan of the motivation of Israeli soldiers, and I can't go far enough to say my disappointment in the general staff and the decision makers up on top. Two things. First of all, every few days we're attacking some other empty targets. Why can't we just take care of all those targets that are really important targets?
Again, they insist that there's a binary choice: do nothing and make a lot of noise, and then show fake footage to your friends on the news who also think that all we should do is give them stuff. We're saying that we have to go in and kill half the army, taking over, Deir al-Balah.
All right, so that's problem number one. But here's the even more deeper problem. Just 2 days ago, there was an argument at the cabinet between Education Minister Naftali Bennett of the Jewish Home Party and the head of the IDF General Staff. And basically, Bennett was saying, let's shoot those kite flyers, balloon flyers, before they let them up in the air.
The arsonists.
Let's shoot the arsonists. And the head of the Israeli army said, that is against my value system.
Right.
That's the value system of the head of the army? You're not allowed to attack those who are about to attack you? That's against the Jewish value system. That's against the basic human instinct of self-defense. And yet this is the head of the Israeli army's value system that obviously also is part of the upper echelons, which is stopping us from being able to defend ourselves. That is infuriating.
Yeah, it's infuriating, and I don't know what's more infuriating, whether that's his values and he's supposed to be defending us, because that's not just a value problem, that's a strategic issue, because that means that he's his value tells him that he can't defend the country against its enemies, which means that he's really a conscientious objector. So what is he doing in the army, let alone standing at its helm? The other problem is, what's wrong with our politicians? Why wasn't he fired on the spot? We made a mistake, right? Promoting this pacifist to be the head of the IDF. So let's fix that mistake by firing him. That's a firing offense. These people are burning down southern Israel. And he's saying it's against his values to attack them, to prevent them from burning the country down. Okay, that's what they're doing. 7,500 acres have been burned to the ground in southern Israel, and nothing. And the chief of our general staff is saying that it's against his value system to go after them. Then leave. Go away, right? Because your values are screwed up. Because your values are burning down southern Israel. All right? These are bad values. You have bad values. You have stupid values. You have immoral values. Forget about Jewish. This is idiotic. You're a doofus. You're stupid. Get out of the country. Go away. Go live in Europe. That's where their values is true. They like to be overrun by jihadists. Go be with them. Go live in Brussels. You'll feel right at home. Here in Israel, we're supposed to defeat our enemies because we don't have any choice and we can't afford to live with the delusion that your value of human life, of terrorists who are burning down our country, is more important than the value of our country. Because it's not. And it is. There's your binary choice. Choose. Choose. Which one do you want to be on the side of, them or us? Because right now, we're losing. They're burning down our country and laughing at us. And you won't go after them. You have a problem. Get out. Why didn't he get fired? Why did Naftali Bennett get on television last night and say that he has enormous respect for Eisenkot and that they had this great conversation? He's terrible. He should have been fired for that and for so many other stupid things that he's said over the past few years. He's a terrible chief of staff. Why can't anybody just say that? It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Look at what we're facing. And he's saying it's against my values to go after somebody who's burning down southern Israel. And that's the other thing, it's like you look at these, like you don't even see the picture. It's not even that you don't see the forest for the trees. I mean, all the trees have burned down, right? How can he say somebody holding a kite? This is an arsonist. This is an environmental terrorist. What are you calling him a kite flyer for? Are you stupid? He's not a kite flyer. He's your enemy. And this is a weapon that he's deploying to destroy your country, and he is destroying your country. There aren't any nature reserves in southern Israel along the Gaza border where there used to be 4 of them. These people are destroying our country. There was no harvest in the south because it was all burned down. And you care about them? Who the hell are you? What is your problem? So yeah, I think that he is what he did, is inexcusable. But where is our political leadership? Why aren't they firing him? Why does he still have a job? And why does Naftali Bennett come on TV the next day after he said the right thing? He says the wrong thing. He has enormous respect for Gadi Eisenkot. I don't. And he was praising him for stopping all of the marches to Israel. Oh, come on, give me a break. What? He put down half of the army there. That was a stupid decision. That was a dumb decision. We didn't need all of those forces there. Right. We needed 1/10 of those forces there with real orders to take them down.
Right.
You didn't have to go down there to personally direct the efforts. You were supposed to empower your battalion commanders to do their job. Where's the command thinking process here? What are you, a company commander? You're the chief of the general staff, for crying out loud. This is a tactical problem. Why are you dealing with it like it's a strategic threat? The strategic threat is in the north, and you're not doing anything there either. So, not that I have any strong opinions about it.
All right, guys, we got to go. You got some great information today. If you missed the beginning, Caroline was talking about the Trump-Putin summit. Really, really important information, really important analysis. Thank you so much for watching. Go to CarolineGlick.com, sign up for a newsletter, get it straight from the source, all of her writings all over the place. Caroline, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have an easy fast. Let's get through this and let's build a temple.
Amen. Amen, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching.